Hello folks, and welcome to this lesson on lean production. As I promised, this was happening this week. Hopefully you've done the required reading in advance, and if you have, bonus, this will come as quite a pleasant video, and it should make a lot of sense. If you haven't done the required reading, you might want to pause now, find those articles and do the reading. So, based upon what you read, what does it mean to be lean? Pause now and have a think about that. Ultimately, in essence, right, what you should have read from the business review articles, what you should have picked up on, is that lean production, it's got its origins in Japan, right, very much centered around Toyota, and lean production focuses on production methods. So it's quite common to think of this in terms of like manufacturing, in an organisation where something is physically being produced, where the output is tangible. But also we need to focus upon service organisations, bearing in mind the importance of the tertiary sector to the UK economy. Why is lean production important? Well, if we think about the increasing interdependence of companies, and how different countries are connected, so the interdependence not only of companies but countries as well, that's ramped up competition, right? So by going lean, that's a method that companies can use to improve their competitiveness. Ultimately, lean production focuses on reducing waste, increasing efficiency. If those two can be established and achieved, then the firm would go about trying to reduce its costs, ultimately making it more competitive. But what must be adhered to, the firm must be able to try and maintain the same quality. Okay. So what you'll find when we're exploring this topic is that lean production isn't just changes to like a manufacturing process. It is all to do with a series of working practices. Okay. Rather than just manufacturing per se. So it's all to do with thinking about employees at work. So those of you who are keen on making synoptic links, that might be a bit of crossover here in terms of the human resources topic that we covered before we were locked down. So what do we need to be able to do? Explain what's meant by lean production, look at the range of lean production techniques you need to be able to do for each of these, explain how they reduce waste and how they improve productivity, and you also need to be able to critique them. Okay, that's skill evaluation. So there's the knowledge, being able to explain, be able to identify, the analysis explaining the impact of that technique on a given organisation, and the evaluation, thinking about the limitations, making judgments upon the effectiveness of each of those lean techniques. So how can a business become lean? We've got a number shown on screen there. Just-in-time stock control, cell production, reducing lead times, etc. Now, you'll remember that when we were in school together last week, we focused on just-in-case stock control. So the idea of firms holding given quantities of stock in order to respond to changes in demand. Just-in-time stock control is the opposite. Nothing's held, only what is required for that day's production requirements. So stock is continuously arriving in a just-in-time environment, trying to minimise waste. The stock comes in and it's used as and when it's needed. And those of you who've done GCSE, this will be familiar to you. Okay, cell production is something that won't be familiar to you necessarily, right? That's something that you're going to explore later on. But what you will find out about cell production, it's very closely aligned to this material we looked at when we explored HR, thinking about the importance of working as a team and putting a lot of emphasis on what that actual cell, i.e. the team, produces, right? And you might come across more techniques that aren't on the screen, such as Kanban, okay? Very much used in a manufacturing environment. So these are a range of different methods that a business can use to become lean. When we did stock control in school, you'll remember the term lead time, the difference between when an order is placed and when it is received. So that's sort of basically the time that you're waiting to receive the goods, okay, or for a specific job to be completed. You've just completed a question on productivity, and I'm working my way through answering those. I believe 10 of you have handed those in as of this moment in time, which is brilliant to see. Kaizen is this notion of continuous improvement, and we'll explore that in the focus of Nissan. Quality circles and time-based management are all methods that a business can use to become lean. Right, little thinking task here. Right, I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of someone who owns a restaurant. Right? Some of you who are actually in this scenario, who've got family businesses, then have a think how this might happen where you either work or where your family has a business. So let's imagine you're doing a restaurant. You've got 3 serving staff, and each of those serving staff have got a designated area. In that area, there are 6 tables each. Right, so 3 areas with 6 tables in. Key metric for you is customer satisfaction. Why is that? Because if a dine is a bad experience, word of mouth is going to spread, and repeat custom could drop. Right, and then you have someone who takes to Twitter like this and post something along these lines: hashtag too slow and cold food. Right, you as the manager, what are you going to do? Thinking about what might have happened in terms of how someone ultimately ended up with a plate of cold food. So what would you put in place to try and solve this? Pause now, jot some ideas down based upon what you've read in terms of lean production. Right, you might go down this route. You might invest in some capital equipment. Why is that? Well, if someone's food's cold, then there's clearly been some sort of issue between the kitchen and the server in terms of getting the food out. Okay, there might have also been in a completely different scenario. Right, imagine that Twitter feed that Twitter post was just coming on too slow. Right, in other words, you've probably been there yourselves. You've placed an order, and then you've been sitting there for 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and the food hasn't turned up. That's got to be down to communication somewhere. Now, you imagine a busy restaurant. You've got a server that's responsible for a number of people. They take your order, they're then going to take someone else's. Might the orders get mixed up, particularly if they're written down? Might someone else ask them something? So therefore distracts them. A phone might ring. There might be a slippage. They've got to clean it up. A whole number of things could happen, right, on the way from that person taking the order to the kitchen receiving it. So, by investing in capital equipment, e.g. a Wi-Fi connection, a mobile phone system with a messaging straight to a computer in the kitchen, surely that would speed up ordering and reduce any forms of miscommunication. Again, without sounding like a parrot even, we've all been there where there's been a mistake made and the order's been mixed up because of miscommunication. So would that system, yes, it's going to have a capital outlay at the start, but would it improve customer satisfaction? Because ultimately what we're thinking about is that system reducing waste and reducing defects, right? So that could be that's a sort of lean thinking to an extent. Right, over to you here then. Let's get some knowledge. You may choose to use the articles instead, but click this link, and this tutorial video has got the essential theory of lean productions and ways to become lean. So using the diagram from page 5, make notes on the methods. If you start to make notes from your reading, brilliant. But this is going to get you the knowledge and the analysis, so that when it comes to those exam questions, that can easily flow and we aren't getting mixed up. So pause now, and I would say give yourselves 10 minutes for this. Right, hopefully those notes are relatively straightforward. Now what I'd like to do, another bit of viewing pleasure for yourselves. Pause, go to that link. This one's on Kaizen, so if you noticed from the previous one you thought you could add a little bit more, here's Kaizen, continuous improvement. See what notes you can add from this video. I like this one. Okay, applying Kaizen and Nissan's philosophy. This is taken from the journal. If you plug this into Google, you'll find the source article. I think it was from 2005, 2006. Right? Read this through. What I want you to imagine is the following. Right? Think to yourselves that you're looking from the inside. Sorry, you're looking from the outside in to Nissan. Right? some sort of consultant maybe. Think to yourselves, why are they employing this lean philosophy? Why are they employing Kaizen? If you were visiting the factory, what would you see? So draw yourself a table. Why in one column? What could you see in another? Pause now and give yourselves around 10 minutes for this. Right. What could you see? Well, hopefully you might see an increase in output per employee. Why is that? Because hopefully the employees are more productive. You might see an environment where there's fewer defects, right? Fewer mistakes being made. Less wastage. So as the employees' productivity improves, as the employees use different systems in terms of, if you explored Kanban, the card system tells the employee exactly what they need as and when. There's going to be less waste of materials, right? If you explored quality circles, then clearly within that quality circle, right, the workers would have explored how best that product can be built and how quality can be improved and maintained. So therefore, maybe some discussion occurred that, by actually using a different type of material, then it could be less prone to breaking and therefore less prone to waste, right? With this one, I always think, imagine you sat in my room and I give you one of those unbranded Pritt sticks, right? They're cheap, but it's a bit of false economy, right? There's a lot of waste goes on with those. I could have a box of 30 and they're not used and they dry up. Well, that's a lot of waste. Well, if I buy the branded version, they could sit there for a year and they're still good, right? So with Kaizen, you might see less waste of materials. You may see a more motivated and productive or more happy workforce, right? They might have bought in to the whole philosophy, and therefore they may feel like they have ownership over the task at hand, and therefore that increases their motivation. However, you might, in an organisation that initially employs lean methods, so particularly if it's an organisation that's gone into a transition from not producing and servicing in a lean way, all of a sudden to that, we might see that actually that causes quite a bit of stress, a bit of angst amongst those workers, okay, because it's a culture shock for some of them. Now, the why column should have been really relatively straightforward to fill in. Why have Nissan imposed Kaizen? Well, it's to do with saving time and saving money. Ultimately, we're focusing on the bottom line there, okay? Saving time because our employees can be more productive, and saving money because cash outflows can be minimised, particularly if we are using just-in-time stock control. We only pay for the stock that we need, and therefore we're not having lots of capital tied up in stock, and therefore that minimises our cash flow, okay? Keeps cash within the business rather than flowing out to suppliers. Waste's minimised, okay? Again, by employing JIT methods, we're not having lots of stock lying around that could get damaged. And labour might be more productive, particularly if an improvement's found that reduces physical strain, okay? And what I mean by that is an improvement in the actual work and practice rather than an improvement in actual work and practice for how that employee approaches their job, okay? And therefore they could be more productive, which is important in a manufacturing environment. It's important in any working environment, really, isn't it? To an extent. So hopefully that's made sense in terms of why an organisation would employ lean methods, and what we as an observer would see if we enter that organisation. The takeaway task now then, we've got some context there, we've got some analysis in terms of explaining what the impact might be. You're going to see a link, or rather you will see a post to a times 100 case study. This time we're going to focus on a service-based organisation. We're going to focus on Aldi. I would like you to read the case study through and complete the questions, at the end and see my other instructions on Google Classroom for that one. I hope you found this useful. Thanks very much.